Oliver with Three Stripe Management, talking today about neighbor disputes. Neighbor disputes are always the worst kind of dispute they are, especially if you're sharing a wall, a floor, or a ceiling. The impact on one another can literally drive you from your home. And your home is your sanctuary. It's the place you go at the end of the day to get away from it all. The last thing you want to have to deal with is a noisy neighbor, or a smelly neighbor, or a frustrating neighbor, or any of those neighbor issues that come up. So what I'm going to try and do is lay out some of those guidelines that will hopefully resolve that dispute in the most efficient and effective way possible. Step 1, talk to your neighbor. It's also steps 2 and 3. Talk to your neighbor. Go over, introduce yourself, explain in the most amiable way possible. Try to be compassionate. Try and reach out to them and assume they don't understand the impact of their actions. If you can connect with them on a human level and indicate to them you are just their neighbor, you're the person that lives next door, and you have to deal with all of this stuff that's happening, that may just be the solution we need. We wouldn't have to take it a step further. Unfortunately, sometimes that's not the case. And if approaching your neighbor the first, second, and third time doesn't resolve it, that's when we can begin escalating things to your management company. What we need is data. We need information. We need to know what's occurring, when it's occurring, how it's occurring, and what you've done to prevent it from occurring again. Keeping a log, a simple notebook next to a table or the location that this occurs, is your first best step. Try and track it. Is it an ongoing thing? Does it happen occasionally? That in turn is going to define our response. In order to follow up with the dispute between neighbors, we have to follow the guidelines that are set forth within your governing documents. That means following the house rules, finding the covenants, the rules and restrictions that govern that particular behavior in an effort to put a stop to it. But we're going to reach out to them in all the same ways I'm encouraging you. Before we escalate to that notice of violation or notice of warning, we're going to try and communicate with them person to person and explain the incident. There's only so much anonymity that comes along with these sorts of disputes. At some point, you are going to have to get involved and be prepared for that potential outcome. But what we want to do is ensure that that outcome will lead to a positive one, that we can find a beneficial result to both parties, and that often means compromise. Begin taking notes, putting this stuff into writing, and eventually you will be asked to submit a written complaint. If you live in a community association, that key word is community, governed by a board of directors. The more information we can provide, the better response they can provide you. If you've got further questions about how to deal with an inter-neighbor dispute, what is reasonable and what is not, please do not hesitate to contact me. Oliver Karabi with Three Stripe Management, protecting your investment.